Welcome to the Fictionary podcast, the show that helps you turn your words into bestsellers. I'm Shane Miller, Fictionary's Community and Customer Success Manager, and I'm here to help you structure stories readers can't resist. Enjoy the show. Hello Fictionarians, welcome to episode 5 of the Fictionary podcast. This week's episode is all about writing external conflict. But before that, I've got a quick update about what's happening at Fictionary this week. As always, it's exciting times at Fictionary HQ. We're really excited to announce that Lisa Lepke has joined the Fictionary team as Chief Marketing Officer. Lisa's previous position was the CMO of Pro Writing Aid, so she brings a tremendous amount of experience with her, and we're really lucky she chose to work at Fictionary. Lisa's collaborated with Fictionary over the last 5 years on various different projects, and she's always been a tremendous supporter of us. So the rest of the team and I are really glad she decided to come and work here. Welcome, Lisa. Right, that's it for the update this week. Next up, a quick word from one of our Fictionary community members, and then we'll get into this week's topic. This week's Voices of the Fictionary Community quote comes from Emma Baird. Emma says, "Wow, I wish I'd known about Fictionary sooner. I've always struggled with the story arc, and Fictionary makes it so simple to tell stories." Thank you, Emma, not only for the quote, but also for being an integral part of the Fictionary community. Right, let's get into talking about everything to do with external conflict. External conflict and some internal conflict too will be covered in this episode, and what to look for when self-editing using the Fictionary story element conflict. After all, when you know what you're looking for, you'll be able to find it much more easily. Conflict everywhere. So editing your manuscript is simple. You sign into Fictionary, you open the evaluate page, you name your scene in seconds in 3 words or less. You've got a protagonist, tick. The entry hook is there, tick. Editing is fun. Oh no, wait a minute. At the conflict story element in Fictionary, you freeze. You think you know what conflict is, but you can't find it in your scene. Cue an excessive use of exclamation marks and an unquantifiable amount of question marks. Where is the conflict in this scene? When you're editing, do you ever feel like this? That's great, because you've caught it now. Seriously, you know what the issue is, and now you need to know how to fix it. Knowing what's wrong is the first half of the solution. In this episode, I want to help you with the second half. That's what Fictionary story elements are all about, and that's what editing is all about. In short, story editing is sorting your story out. When you know what external conflict is, your editing will be less and more aha. We all love those aha moments of editing success. And a top tip I learned, if you can't find a story element in your story easily, then it's probably not there. So let's talk about the basics of external conflict. It's time to get into definitions and talk about what external conflict actually is. So we need to think about external conflict as the big versus. And by this, I mean when you're looking for conflict, you've got 2 main types. We've got internal conflict, which is the character versus themselves or their flaw or their scar, whatever you want to call it. And then you have external conflict, which is a character versus the other. So when you're looking for internal or external conflict in your manuscript, internal conflict is the protagonist versus themselves. When the reader reads, this disconnect between the internal voice of the character and the actions they show to the rest of the world, this is internal conflict in action. External conflict can be divided into 4 main categories. External conflict is the protagonist against something or someone other than themselves. Perhaps it's a character versus character situation, so think Moriarty versus Sherlock Holmes. for example. Or maybe it's a character versus society. Think The Handmaid's Tale, Triss from Divergent, Katniss from The Hunger Games, all of those type of dystopian novels. Maybe it's a character versus nature. So think Moby Dick, for instance. Perhaps it's a character versus technology. I'm thinking of something like The Matrix here. Or if you're writing romance or rom-com, maybe it's a character versus their love interest or love interest, like in Bridget Jones' Diary. So when it comes down to it, how do you check for external conflict in each and every one of your scenes? Now, in your first draft, it's important to write the fight. Nobody is perfect, hence why we need editing, and we all need to edit. Perhaps you forgot to write the fight, and now you're at the second draft. When editing, how can you seek external conflict? External conflict is the action in the scene, but not just any action. External conflict is that big versus we talked about. So when you're analyzing your scenes, ask yourselves the following questions. Is there someone else in the scene, and are they conflicting with your point of view character? If not, why not? Because that's how you create conflict. Is the weather in the scene fighting your protagonist? Are they trying to get home and it's snowing and the car's skidding everywhere and it's creating obstacles? If not, why not? Is there technology in the scene versus the protagonist? Obviously, these examples will differ depending on the type of novel that you write. And not every place in a scene needs to have conflict. But if the conflict isn't really obvious, then you need to look for conflict in all the usual places to see if there's a place where you can cause some trouble for your protagonist. For example, say you have a scene where someone is washing the dishes and there's no conflict there. Ask yourself, does the reader need to actually see the dishes being washed? On the other hand, it depends how your character is washing those dishes. Are they being washed aggressively because the protagonist is sick and tired of their partner never lifting a finger around the house? Then the external conflict becomes visible and your reader can really feel it. If you can't see where the external conflict is in a scene, then you have two choices. You either need to find the fight or the conflict and then rewrite the scene with that fight or conflict in it, or have a peek at your story arc and a peek at your blurb, and you can cut this scene and action from your story. So if there is no conflict in the scene and you can't insert conflict into the scene, then it might be time to cut that scene from your novel. And I've got a quick checklist for you to see whether you've written external conflict in a scene. So check mark number 1, does your conflict show in the action that's taking place? Check mark number 2, does your conflict show in the dialogue, the interaction between characters? Check mark number 3, is your external conflict a versus conflict? So is it your character versus something or someone else? And check mark number 4, have you checked off all of your conflict in Fictionary using the conflict element to make sure that every scene contains it? Now we know what everyone means when they talk about external conflict. Using these Fictionary story elements on a scene-by-scene level is the most efficient way to edit. We all know conflict-free stories are dull, even predictable. But predictability and being dull won't win you awards for fiction writing. If the reader knows what's going to happen, why would they turn the page over? If your reader knows that the protagonist will definitely survive, why would they carry on reading the story? So if you want to win awards, one way is to polish up your usage of internal and external conflict in your scenes. And if you're really serious about writing great books, we recommend that you join the Fictionary community, which is a space where you can talk about self-editing, ask questions, and connect with other like-minded writers and editors. And there's people like me in there, the Fictionary certified story coach editors, answering questions on writing and editing. And the community is also where you can find out about all the fun things we've got going on, like Question of the Week, Weekly Accountability, the Fictionary Conference. So just come over and say hi, we'd really appreciate it. Once again, it's time for my favorite part of the show. This is Question of the Week. So this week's question for you to answer is, which of these do you find hardest to write? Character, plot, or setting? And why is that hard for you? I can't wait to read your answers. You can either drop a comment on the YouTube video or join the Fictionary community for free and come and answer the question there. Get involved in the conversation with tons of other talented writers and editors. The link to join the Fictionary community is down in the show notes. In case you didn't know, we have a writers' conference coming up, which is taking place between the 12th and the 14th of February 2023. The conference usually costs $199 US, but you can attend for free in 3 easy steps. First, just join the Fictionary community by visiting fictionary.co/community. Once you join, you'll get a promo code to enter the conference completely free. And then you just register for the conference on Feedloop. I will put all of the links in the show notes for that. And why should you come to the conference? Simply because we have got a fantastic selection of guest speakers that are going to blow your writerly socks off. Come to the conference and you'll get expert advice from Writers House Literary Agency, the Alliance of Independent Authors, Pro Writing Aid, Lulu, Rakuten Kobo, Atticus, and many, many more people. So I hope to see you at the Fictionary Loves Writers Conference 2023. Thank you for listening to the Fictionary podcast. If you enjoyed the show, hit subscribe on YouTube or your favourite podcatcher. And don't forget to head over to the YouTube channel or join the Fictionary community for free today and answer the question of the week. Happy writing and editing, and we'll chat again next time.